disaster. Well, for more on this, let's speak to the former Obama campaign foreign policy advisor and former US State Department official, David Tafuri. David Tafuri, thanks for being with us here on Sky News. So are we expecting now, almost 2 weeks into the big effort at diplomacy, for President Putin not to move his troops into Ukraine?
Well, no one knows what Putin is going to do, and I'm not sure he has decided yet. Our Secretary of State, Blinken, and a team from the State Department and White House officials are trying to reach a negotiation and negotiate a compromise. It's going to be very difficult for them to do so because the two sides simply don't agree. What Putin wants is to ensure that Ukraine will never be a well-functioning, stable democracy and will not be part of NATO. He feels that is a threat to have a democracy on his western border. And Biden and Blinken have refused to agree that they will never allow Ukraine to be part of NATO and that they will not continue to have a strong alliance with Ukraine. So there's really no compromise at this point. We hope that Russia will back down. Biden has made clear that there will be serious ramifications if Russia does further invade Ukraine. He's talked about sanctions and working with our European partners to have a whole regime of sanctions. But the question is that enough to deter Putin?
I mean, this has been a long-running issue, of course, hasn't it, David Tafuri? I do wonder what you think about how much the decision by President Obama not to give Ukraine lethal weapons back in 2015 has led to this encouragement, in some ways, for Vladimir Putin.
Well, I think certainly the fact that we didn't take stronger action after Russia invaded Crimea and annexed Crimea is part of the reason why Putin has continued his expansionist policies in Eastern Europe and why he thinks he can possibly get away with invading Ukraine further. Of course, he's already engaged in meddling in Eastern Ukraine. There's already been a war in Eastern Ukraine since 2014, over 14,000 deaths on the Ukrainian side. So it's already a tragedy. And he certainly was emboldened by the fact that we didn't do more in response to what he did in Crimea.
I mean, where does this go from here then, David? Do we have to just wait until Vladimir Putin decides what he's going to do? What moves do you think the West can take, apart from the threat of these sanctions, which I don't think put people off in Russia that much? What can the West do or NATO do to try and discourage any invasion, do you think?
Well, I don't think the U.S. is just sitting and waiting. I mean, we are taking actions, I think, behind the scenes. Of course, we are stepping up our support for the Ukrainian military. We're providing weapons. We provided over $450 million in weapons and military support last year. It's been $2.5 billion since 2014. I imagine that's increasing a lot right now. We do have some U.S. advisors and special forces on the ground in Ukraine who are doing training, and I think that will continue. And hopefully, we will ramp that up as well. But we need support from our other NATO partners. That's part of the effort to deter Russia from going in. And then, of course, sanctions is a big part, too. The Russian economy is already struggling. We want it to just collapse through sanctions if Putin does take this action. And I hope that Biden and our partners in Europe will work together for a very strong sanctions regime immediately upon any action by Russia.
Finally then, David, the language of advisors on the ground, you'll know what kind of history that has from Vietnam to the Middle East. How concerned are you that this situation in Ukraine could widen into a larger conflict?
I think everybody should be concerned. There's no reason to think that Putin is going to be reasonable, and he also wants to save face all around the world. We know that he has troops on the border of Ukraine, so I think there's a lot of cause for concern. Now, whether this will escalate into a broader war where more troops will be sent in by the U.S. or by other NATO countries, I'm not sure about that. Biden so far has been pretty clear about the fact that we're not going to put boots on the ground in response to an invasion, but you never know once a war starts how it's going to play out.
Absolutely right. Okay, David Tafuri, former advisor to the campaign for Barack Obama and the US State Department. Thank you very much for your analysis, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.